Let's start with the setup. Because context matters. Context is everything. The Indiana Fever came into this game carrying something. Not just a record, not just a roster, they came in carrying a name. The name Caitlin Clark. And whether you're a basketball fan or not, you know that name. You've heard it. You've seen it. You've seen the highlights, the logo, the number 22 jersey being worn by what feels like every single young girl in the country. Caitlin Clark is not just a basketball player. She is a cultural phenomenon. She is the reason the WNBA's viewership numbers have gone through the roof. She is the reason games like this one, a regular season game in early June, feel like playoff basketball. And the New York Liberty know this. They've known it for a while. Because when the Liberty wake up in the morning and see Indiana on their schedule, they know exactly what they're dealing with. They've played Caitlin Clark before. They've felt what it's like when she's rolling, when her rhythm is locked in, when every pass she makes finds its target like she's got eyes in the back of her head. But the Liberty had their own weapon, their own monster, their own woman who on any given night can completely take over a basketball game and make everyone else on the floor feel like they're playing in slow motion. Breanna Stewart, Stewie, the best forward in the WNBA. And on this particular night, June 6th, 2026, she would prove exactly why that title belongs to her. Let's talk about what this game looked like from the very first tip-off. The arena was humming. You could feel it before the ball even went up. There's something about a Liberty home game when the opponent is Indiana. The crowd knows what they're about to see. They know the storylines. They know the stakes. And they were ready. Indiana won the tip and came down looking to establish something early. Head coach Christy Sides had preached all week about getting inside, getting physical, not letting New York push them around. The Fever are a team that can score in multiple ways. They've got Kelsey Mitchell, who is one of the most explosive guards in the league. They've got Aaliyah Boston down low, who is tough and physical and smart. And then, of course, they've got Caitlin Clark, who can do a little bit of everything. The plan for Indiana was simple. Be aggressive, play fast, and attack New York's defense before they could get set. And for the first 4 minutes of this game, that plan actually worked. Caitlin Clark came out and immediately started making plays. Not scoring, not yet, but facilitating. Pushing the pace, finding cutters, making quick decisions. There was this early moment where she drove the lane, drew 2 defenders, and dropped it off to Aaliyah Boston for an easy layup. And the way she delivered that pass, that little no-look flip, it was so casual, so confident, like she'd been doing this her whole life. Because she has. Indiana was moving the ball beautifully in those first few minutes. Every pass was intentional. Every cut had a purpose. They were playing the kind of basketball that makes you lean forward in your chair because you can feel something building. And then Monique Billings woke up. Now, if you're not fully familiar with Monique Billings, she's Indiana's forward who came into this game with a chip on her shoulder the size of a refrigerator. She was not going to let anyone push her around tonight. She was physical, she was aggressive, she was going after every rebound like it owed her money. And she was shooting the basketball with this beautiful, quiet confidence that is honestly one of the most dangerous things a player can have. When a player isn't flashy, isn't loud, isn't making ESPN highlight reels every night, but they just go out there and quietly destroy you, that's scary. That's Monique Billings tonight. She ended the first quarter with points already on the board. Her shooting line was remarkable, and she was cleaning up glass on both ends. Billings would finish the game shooting 85.7% from the field, 6 of 7 shots. That is an absurd number. That is the kind of efficiency that wins games. And for a while, it looked like it might. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because the first quarter was, above everything else, an Indiana Fever quarter. Indiana went up by as many as 12 points in the opening period. 12. In an away game. Against the New York Liberty. That is not a small thing. That is Indiana walking into the Liberty's house, looking them in the eyes, and saying, "We belong here. We're not scared of you. We're not overwhelmed by the moment." The final score of the first quarter was Indiana 25, New York 21. The Fever had the lead, they had the momentum, and they had Caitlin Clark operating like a maestro, conducting the entire offense. She had assists flying everywhere. She was in total control. Every time the defense would collapse on one of her drives, she'd find the open teammate. Every time they'd back off and give her space, she'd pull up and punish them from deep. She was playing with that kind of fluid confidence that fans have come to expect from her, like the moment isn't too big, like the crowd isn't too loud, like there's nothing that can shake her. 9 assists on the night.
9.
And she was also pulling down rebounds, throwing her body around defensively, and making the entire team function at a higher level simply by being on the floor.
Now,
I have to stop here and talk about the elephant in the room. The thing that would haunt Indiana for the rest of the game. Caitlin Clark fouled out. Let me say that again, so it can really sink in. Caitlin Clark, the engine of this entire Indiana Fever offense, the heart and soul of this franchise, the reason half the people in this country care about women's basketball right now, picked up 5 personal fouls and was constantly in foul trouble all night long. And it wasn't because she was playing dirty. It wasn't because she was being reckless. The Liberty were attacking her. They were hunting her fouls. Every time a Liberty player drove at her, every time there was a collision, there was a chance Clark would get called for a foul. And eventually the math caught up with her. 5 fouls. 29 minutes on the floor. Meaning every single minute she was out there, Indiana's coaching staff was watching the clock, watching the foul count, managing her minutes, terrified of losing her when the game was on the line. When you have to play scared, when your best player is constantly on the edge of being disqualified, your whole offense gets cautious. Your decision-making gets timid. And timidity is what New York was waiting for. Let's step into the second quarter, because this is where the game started to shift. The Fever had their lead. They had their momentum. But now Breanna Stewart was fully warmed up. And a warmed-up Breanna Stewart is one of the most fearsome sights in professional basketball.
she started getting to her spots.
Started demanding the ball in the post, in the mid-range, on the wing. And when she got it,
She didn't hesitate. She didn't overthink.
she just played. Smooth, confident, surgical basketball. Stewart has this way of moving that's hard to describe unless you've watched a lot of her. She's 6 feet tall, she moves like someone 6 inches shorter, and she's got a skill set that's genuinely unique. She can post up smaller players, she can step out and hit threes, she can put the ball on the floor and attack in transition, and on top of all that, she's one of the best passers at her position in the world. She sees the floor like a point guard. She has the footwork of a ballet dancer. And she has the will of someone who has been told she can't do something and decided to prove the world wrong every single day of her career. She also drew fouls. A lot of them. And this is the thing that really started hurting Indiana in the second quarter. New York was getting to the free throw line at a rate that was almost unfair. Stewart alone went to the line repeatedly, and she knocked those shots down with the calm of someone sitting in their living room. By halftime, New York had started chipping away at Indiana's lead. The Fever took a small lead into the break, 36-40, but that lead had shrunk dramatically from the 12 points Indiana had enjoyed in the first quarter. You could already feel the energy shifting. Indiana's early explosion was cooling down. New York was heating up. And the Liberty, you got the sense, were exactly where they wanted to be. Down 4 at halftime, with Breanna Stewart not even close to being warmed up yet. At halftime, let me paint you a picture of what this game looked like statistically, because the numbers tell a story that the eye test alone might not. Indiana was shooting 40.3% from the field overall. New York was shooting 36.4%. So Indiana was actually shooting better. They also had more three-pointers, 8 of 25 attempts, compared to New York's 2 of 18. And they had 20 assists, which is a gorgeous team basketball number. They were sharing the ball. They were moving it. They were doing the things that good basketball teams do. But New York had something Indiana could not match. Free throws. By the final buzzer, New York had attempted 40 free throws.
40.
Indiana had attempted 15. That is a stunning, jaw-dropping difference. 25 more trips to the line for the Liberty. And they made 33 of those 40. 82.5%. That is 33 extra points essentially gifted to New York by Indiana's foul situation. Indiana fouled 27 times. 27. Their entire team was walking on a tightrope of foul trouble all night long. And late in the game, when they needed to play aggressive defense and contest shots and be physical, they couldn't. Because every foul call might send New York back to the line. and New York was going to make those free throws. This is the hidden story of the game. Breanna Stewart had 18 free throw attempts by herself.
18.
She made 15 of them. That means the Indiana Fever essentially handed Breanna Stewart 15 extra points simply by fouling her. And she punished every single one of them. When the final shooting numbers went up, Stewart had finished with 30 points. 30 points. 30 points and 8 rebounds and 2 assists and 4 steals, and she was a plus 17 on the floor, meaning when she was out there, New York outscored Indiana by 17 points. She was, without any debate, the best player on the floor tonight. The best player in the building. And if the world hadn't already figured that out, June 6th, 2026 was the night they were reminded. Now, let's talk about the third quarter, because this quarter deserves its own chapter. The third quarter of this game was a war. A grinding, physical, intensely contested 12 minutes of basketball where neither team could get any separation. Indiana knew they needed to hold on. New York knew they needed to take the lead. And neither team was willing to give an inch. The score at the end of 3, Indiana 57, New York 54. Indiana still ahead. Still clinging to that lead they'd built in the first quarter. Still fighting. But here's what you need to understand about what was happening beneath the surface. Indiana was getting tired. Not physically tired, though that was part of it, but strategically tired. They were running out of answers. Every time they tried to push the pace, New York had an answer. Every time they tried to work the ball inside to Aaliyah Boston, the Liberty collapsed and forced the ball back out. Every time they tried to get Kelsey Mitchell going off the dribble, New York was ready. Kelsey Mitchell played her heart out in this game. 21 points. She was Indiana's leading scorer. She was aggressive, she was physical, she was doing everything right. But she turned the ball over 4 times, and in a game this tight, against a defense this good, you cannot give the ball away 4 times. You just can't. And Aaliyah Boston. Let's talk about Aaliyah Boston. 13 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks. She was a force in the paint. She was making life miserable for anyone who tried to score in that area. But she also had 4 turnovers. And she picked up her 5th foul, joining Clark in foul trouble, joining a growing list of Indiana players who had to play cautiously, had to pick their spots, had to think twice before reaching in or sliding their feet on a contested drive. Boston also picked up a technical foul at some point in this game, an emotional moment, a flash of frustration in a game that was slipping away. And that one extra point, that one small gift to New York? In a game decided by 8, every single point mattered. So we head into the fourth quarter with Indiana holding on by 3. 3 points. 1 possession. 1 small lead that felt much smaller than the numbers on the scoreboard suggested. And now we get to the part of this story that I've been building toward. The part that explains everything. The part that answers the question of how a team that led by 12 points in the first quarter ended up losing by 8. The fourth quarter. New York Liberty 29 points. Indiana Fever 18 points. Let that sink in. In the final 12 minutes of a game Indiana needed to win, New York outscored them by 11 points. 11. In 1 quarter. Against a team that had been competitive all night. Against a Caitlin Clark who was doing everything in her power to keep Indiana alive. This was the quarter when Breanna Stewart took over. And I mean took over in the truest, most complete sense of the phrase. She was unstoppable. She was going to the line every single time she touched the ball in traffic. She was making mid-range shots. She was converting in the post. She was setting up teammates with precise passes that cut Indiana's defense open. She was the eye of a storm that Indiana could not weather. But it wasn't just Stewart. Because one of the most beautiful and dangerous things about the New York Liberty is that they don't need everything to go through one person.
They have depth.
They have players who can hurt you in multiple ways. Paulina Astier came off the bench and shot 66.7% from the field. 66.7 on 12 points. She went to the line 5 times and made 4 of them. She was efficient in a way that is almost cruel when your team is trying to hold on to a lead. Leonie Febick contributed steals and deflections and energy. Jonquil Jones had 12 rebounds and was an absolute menace on the glass. And Satou Sabally with 13 points, quiet but consistent, filling in the gaps and making sure Indiana could never focus their defense on just one Liberty player. Indiana tried everything. They really did. Down the stretch, when the deficit started growing, Caitlin Clark pushed the pace. She probed the defense. She found holes. But she was also fighting her own foul trouble with every move, every drive, every contested shot. When she drives to the basket in the fourth quarter of a close game and there's a Liberty defender in her path, she has to make a split-second decision. Do I go through the contact and risk getting my fifth foul, or do I pull up and give them a more comfortable look? That hesitation is a killer. And New York knew it. The Fever's offense sputtered in those final 12 minutes. 18 points. From a team that had scored 25 in the first quarter alone. The energy that had powered Indiana through the first half just dried up when they needed it most. And the Liberty, sensing blood, turned it up. Every possession mattered. Every stop they got fueled the next offensive possession. The crowd fed on every New York basket, every Indiana turnover. There were 15 Indiana turnovers in total tonight, and New York converted those into 15 points. Every moment that told them, we've got this. It's ours. Come and take it if you dare. Indiana couldn't take it. The lead changed hands. New York surged ahead and never looked back. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark's night in full. Because it would be wrong to walk away from this game without giving her the full picture that she deserves. 10 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 1 block, 2 three-pointers. And she did it in 29 minutes while managing 5 personal fouls. She shot 4 for 14 from the field. Not her best night as a scorer. But her assist total, 9, is what made Indiana even remotely competitive in this game. Every basket she didn't score herself. She was creating for someone else. She was the quarterback. She was the conductor. She kept the machine running even when the machine was running on fumes. 9 assists. That's a point guard doing point guard things at the highest level. That's not just running the offense. That's elevating teammates, making reads under pressure, delivering the ball to the right player at the right time in the right spot. Every single one of those 9 assists was a decision made in real time against a defense designed to confuse and contain. And she did it while battling foul trouble the entire night. Think about that. Think about how mentally and emotionally draining it is to play 30 minutes of basketball knowing that one more foul, one wrong step, one contested drive that doesn't go your way, and you're done. You're on the bench watching your team try to hold on without you. She never stopped competing. She never stopped trying. And when the game was over and New York had won, and the final buzzer had sounded, Caitlin Clark walked off that floor having given everything she had. It just wasn't enough tonight. That is the brutal truth of sports. Sometimes you give everything, and it still isn't enough. And you have to live with that. And you have to come back and do it again. Clark will come back. She always does. Let me give you the full Indiana Fever picture before we close this out. Kelsey Mitchell, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. She was Indiana's leading scorer, and she fought like crazy all night. But 4 turnovers and a shooting percentage of 33.3, just 12 of 25 attempts, meant that her efficiency wasn't where it needed to be on a night when Indiana couldn't afford any wasted possessions. Monique Billings, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. And that absurd 85.7% shooting. She was Indiana's most efficient player tonight. She scored on nearly every look she got. She was a revelation off the bench and as a starting piece. If she plays like this consistently, Indiana becomes a much more dangerous team. Aaliyah Boston, 13 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks. She was powerful in the paint and a defensive presence that altered shots all night. But those 4 turnovers and 5 fouls, including the technical, cost Indiana more than the box score will ever show. Raven Johnson, 6 points, 2 rebounds, for assists in her role as a secondary ball handler. She did some nice things, made some smart decisions, and gave Indiana a burst of energy when they needed it. But her defensive rating on the night was not good. When she was on the floor, New York was scoring at a rate of 110 points per 100 possessions. That's too high. Lexi Hull, 5 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and she shot a perfect 2 for 2 from the field, including a 3. Efficient. Hardworking. A player who does what the team needs and doesn't ask for credit. Sophie Cunningham, 2 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists, 1 steal. She was a -18 in her time on the floor, which tells you how difficult her minutes were. When she was out there, New York took over. And Maisha Hines-Allen, 3 points, 1 rebound, 1 steal. She was a -1 on the night, which is about as neutral as you can be. For New York, beyond Breanna Stewart's 30 points and the game-changing performance she put together, let me walk you through the full cast of characters. Sacha Sabali, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. She was quietly brilliant tonight, as she often is. She doesn't make the highlight reel every night, but she contributes in every possession she's out there. She shot 45.5%, went to the line 3 times, and her presence in the front court alongside Stewart and Jones meant Indiana could never fully commit to stopping one of them. Jonquil Jones, 8 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block. Jones is a matchup nightmare because she can do so many different things. She grabs 12 rebounds. That's an absolute monster game on the glass. And then she's also distributing the ball and making 4 assists. That's a center who thinks like a point guard. Indiana had no answer for her. Paulina Astier, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. Off the bench, shooting 66.7%, going to the line 5 times. She was arguably the best bench player on either team tonight, and her ability to get into the paint and draw fouls gave New York a dimension that Indiana's bench simply could not match. Maureen Johannes, 8 points, 4 rebounds in her role as a starting guard. She knocked down 2 threes and provided the perimeter threat that kept Indiana's defense honest. Leonie Fiebig, 4 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. Fiebig may not have filled the scoring column tonight, but 3 steals. 3. When she was on the floor, New York's defense was suffocating. She was in passing lanes, she was active at the point of attack, she was taking gambles that paid off. Indiana had to be constantly aware of where she was. And that kind of defensive vigilance wears on an offense over time. Betnijah Laney Hamilton, just 2 points, but she provided physicality and experience in her minutes. And Rebecca Gardner, 4 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal off the bench. Another New York reserve who contributed positively and helped maintain the Liberty's depth advantage. New York's bench outscored Indiana's bench, 21-11. In a game decided by 8, that 10-point difference from the reserves is almost exactly the margin of victory. Indiana's supporting cast simply couldn't keep up with New York's. Let's zoom out now. Let's think about what this game means for both franchises. For the Indiana Fever, this was a tough road loss against one of the best teams in the league. Coming in, they'd beaten Atlanta the night before, 83-71, so they were riding some positive momentum. They'd shown throughout the early part of the season that they were capable of competing with anyone. They had wins over Seattle, Portland, Golden State. They'd shown real growth as a team, real chemistry, real identity. But losses like this one, losses where you led by 12 and still found a way to lose, those are the games that either break you or teach you. And Indiana is too young, too hungry, and too talented to let this break them. The foul discipline issue is real, and it needs to be addressed. 27 personal fouls in a single game is a number that cannot repeat itself if this team wants to make a championship run. You cannot gift an opponent 40 free throw attempts and expect to win. That's not about heart or effort or talent. That's just math. And Caitlin Clark's foul trouble is something the coaching staff needs to keep thinking about. How do you protect her from getting picked up early fouls? How do you adjust the game plan when she's in danger of fouling out? These are the chess problems that Christy Sides and her staff need to solve. Because when Clark is on the floor and healthy and unencumbered by foul trouble, this team is dangerous. When she's not, a part of Indiana's soul goes missing. For the New York Liberty, this was exactly what they needed. A complete performance. A team win. Breanna Stewart reminding everyone why she's the best forward in the game. Their bench outperforming Indiana's. Their free throw shooting, 33 of 40, holding up under pressure. Their defense, particularly in the fourth quarter, turning into a wall that Indiana could not scale. New York's biggest lead of the game was 11 points. Indiana's biggest lead was 12. Both teams got their moment of dominance. But the Liberty's moment came when it mattered most. In the fourth quarter, when the game was there to be taken, they took it. That is what champions do. Let me tell you about the fourth quarter one more time because I want you to really feel it. I want you to understand exactly what it looked and felt like inside that arena when the Liberty closed this game out. Indiana comes out of the third quarter down by 3. Their bench players are winded. Their starters are battling foul trouble. Caitlin Clark has 4 fouls, and the coaching staff is carefully monitoring every touch she takes. The crowd at Barclays Center, or wherever they were playing that night, is fully alive, fully engaged, smelling blood. New York's first possession of the fourth quarter. Stewart gets the ball on the block. She turns, she gets fouled.
She goes to the line.
Knock. Knock. 2 free throws. 2 more points. The Liberty faithful erupt. Indiana comes back down. They're working the ball, trying to find something, trying to create the crack in the Liberty defense that will give them a window. Clark makes a decision, tries to drive, and there's contact. And the call doesn't go Indiana's way. New York ball. Next Liberty possession. Stewart again. She draws contact. Again, because she is so relentless in attacking the basket that Indiana has no choice but to foul her. And she makes them pay every single time. This is the rhythm of the fourth quarter. This is what New York's 29-18 scoring advantage looks like in real time. It's not one massive explosion. It's 1,000 small cuts. A free throw here. An offensive rebound leading to a second chance basket there. A turnover turned into an easy transition layup. A three-pointer from a Liberty guard who had been quiet all game, but found her moment when Indiana's defense was finally exhausted. And every time Indiana tried to answer, they came up just a little bit short. A mid-range jumper that rattled out. A three-pointer that was slightly long. A drive that was met by a contested hand at the rim. The basketball gods were simply not on Indiana's side in those final 12 minutes. At some point in the fourth quarter, New York's lead grew to double digits. And Indiana, to their credit, kept fighting. They didn't quit. They didn't hang their heads. They kept competing, kept making plays, kept trying to string together enough stops and scores to get back in it. But the gap was too large. The clock was running out. And New York, playing with a lead and the crowd fully behind them, was simply too comfortable, too experienced, too well-coached to give it back. Final buzzer. New York Liberty 83, Indiana Fever 75. Some games end, and you remember the winner. Some games end, and you remember the loser. And then there are the games that end, and you remember the performance, the individual brilliance, the collective will, the moments of pure basketball beauty that live on even after the final score is forgotten. This was one of those games. You'll remember Breanna Stewart going to the free throw line again, and making it look easy. You'll remember the way her 30 points came, methodically, inevitably, one bucket at a time, until they'd piled up into a total that was almost impossible to believe. You'll remember Caitlin Clark running the Indiana offense with 9 assists, directing traffic, making decisions, competing with full force even as foul trouble gnawed at her minutes, and the Liberty defense plotted her every step. You'll remember Monique Billings hitting 6 of 7 shots, almost perfectly efficient, doing her job without flash or fanfare, being exactly what Indiana needed, and a little bit more. You'll remember the first quarter, when Indiana led by 12, and the world felt like maybe, just maybe, this was Indiana's night. And you'll remember the fourth quarter, when New York Liberty put on a clinic in controlled, aggressive, disciplined basketball and turned a deficit into a comfortable victory. Here's what I want to leave you with. The Indiana Fever are a team going somewhere. They are not a finished product. They are not the team they're going to be 6 months from now, a year from now, at championship time. They are young and talented and hungry and learning. Every game teaches them something. Every loss adds a page to the playbook of their experience. And the lessons from tonight are clear. Clean up the fouls. Take care of the ball. Protect Caitlin Clark from early foul trouble. Get more production from the bench when the starters are limited. These are solvable problems. These are the kinds of things that a well-coached team with the right talent fixes as the season goes on. And Indiana has the talent. They have the coaching. They have the one-in-a-generation talent in Caitlin Clark, who makes every single thing they do better. But tonight was not their night. Tonight was New York's night. Tonight was Breanna Stewart's night. And when the dust settles and the next game tips off and the WNBA season rolls forward, both of these teams will be there, fighting, competing, pushing toward the finish line where championships are won and legacies are built. The Indiana Fever will come back from this. They always do. But for tonight, for June 6th, 2026, the lights belong to the Liberty. 83-75. Final. Now before you go, let me pull back even further and give you the full season context, because where these two teams are in the standings and in their journeys tells us so much about why tonight's game carried the weight that it did. Indiana had gone into this game off a win against Atlanta. Before that, they'd lost to Portland. Before that, they'd lost to Golden State on the road. The Fever are not a perfect team. They know this. But they are a team with peaks that are genuinely scary. When they beat Seattle 89-78 earlier in the season, they looked like a team capable of competing with anyone in the league. When they beat the Golden State Valkyries at home, when they rolled over Portland in that convincing home win, when they beat Dallas in the opener, these were the moments that told the league, Indiana is for real. But they've also had their rough patches. Road games have been harder. Games where foul trouble derails everything. Games where the bench doesn't provide enough. The season is long, and the Fever are learning on the job. That's okay. That's part of becoming something. New York is a perennial contender. The Liberty have been built to win now. Their roster is loaded with experienced players who have been in big moments before. Breanna Stewart has championship DNA. Jonquel Jones has been an MVP. Sabally is an international star. This is a team that knows how to close games, knows how to handle pressure, knows how to win when winning is hard. And that experience, that knowledge, that comfort with the big moment was on full display tonight in that fourth quarter. I want to talk about free throws one more time. I know we've touched on it, but I want to make sure you truly understand how significant this was. New York shot 40 free throws tonight. Indiana shot 15. That is a 25 attempt difference. In basketball, the free throw is the purest possession you can have. No defense. No clock pressure. Just you and the ball and the hoop. When a team gets 25 more of those opportunities than their opponent, they have an enormous advantage before the game even factors in shooting percentage and rebounding and turnovers. New York made 33 of their 40. At the basket, going to the line, they were an 82.5% free throw shooting team. Breanna Stewart alone, 18 attempts, 15 makes. That's 15 free points from a player who is already dominant everywhere else on the floor. Indiana made 9 of 15. 9 points from the line. For the whole game. Do the math. New York scored 24 points from the field goal line. Indiana scored 9. That's 15 extra points. And New York won by 8. Meaning if Indiana had gotten to the line as often as New York and shot it the same way, this game ends differently. Not necessarily in Indiana's favor, but differently. This is not about blaming the referees. This is about recognizing that New York is a team that attacks the basket, that gets physical, that puts themselves in positions to draw fouls. And Indiana fouled them. Too many times. In too many crucial situations. And they paid for it. Let me talk about the turnover battle as well, because it completes the picture. Indiana turned the ball over 15 times tonight. New York turned it over 11. That 4 turnover difference led to New York scoring 15 points off Indiana's mistakes, while Indiana only scored 4 points off New York's. 15 points versus 4 points. That's an 11-point swing just from turnovers. And New York won by 8. Can you see how the game slips away? It's not one big catastrophic moment. It's the accumulation of small decisions. A pass just slightly off target. A drive into traffic that ends in a stolen ball. A possession where you hold the ball too long, and the shot clock forces a rushed attempt. 15 times Indiana did something they didn't intend to do, and 15 times New York was there to make them pay. Kelsey Mitchell had 4 turnovers. Aaliyah Boston had 4 turnovers. Caitlin Clark had 3 turnovers. These are Indiana's best players, their core, their foundation. When your best players are giving the ball away at that rate, the team cannot sustain itself. New York's defense deserves enormous credit for this. They made Indiana uncomfortable. They made passing lanes disappear. They pressured the ball. They contested every decision Indiana tried to make. Leonie Febick with 3 steals was the visible tip of an iceberg. Beneath the surface, the Liberty's defensive scheme was perfectly calibrated to make Indiana's offense second-guess itself. Let's talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention: offensive rebounding. New York had 13 offensive rebounds tonight. Indiana had 9. 13 second chances. 13 extra possessions. 13 moments where the Liberty missed a shot, someone crashed the glass, and New York got to keep attacking instead of giving Indiana the ball. 14 second chance points for New York off those boards. That's an enormous contribution from offensive glass crashing. Jonquil Jones was significant here with her 2 offensive rebounds leading to second chance points. Hans Sue grabbed 2 offensive boards in her minutes. Breanna Stewart cleaned up 4 offensive rebounds herself. When you're trailing in the fourth quarter, and you need stops, and the opponent keeps getting second chances, the psychological weight of that is crushing. Every Indiana defensive stop that doesn't result in possession for Indiana is like a punch that you don't see coming. And the Liberty landed 13 of those punches tonight. Indiana gave up 40 points in the paint. New York scored 40 of their 83 points by getting to the inside, getting physical, scoring at the rim. And 38 of Indiana's 75 came in the paint, so both teams were committed to interior play. But New York did it more efficiently, drew more fouls doing it, and turned that interior dominance into a decisive advantage. Let me talk about the turnover battle as well, because it completes the picture. Indiana turned the ball over 15 times tonight. New York turned it over 11. That 4 turnover difference led to New York scoring 15 points off Indiana's mistakes, while Indiana only scored 4 points off New York's. 15 points versus 4 points. That's an 11-point swing just from turnovers. And New York won by 8. Can you see how the game slips away? It's not one big catastrophic moment. It's the accumulation of small decisions. A pass just slightly off target, a drive into traffic that ends in a stolen ball, a possession where you hold the ball too long, and the shot clock forces a rushed attempt. 15 times Indiana did something they didn't intend to do, and 15 times New York was there to make them pay. Kelsey Mitchell had 4 turnovers. Aaliyah Boston had 4 turnovers. Caitlin Clark had 3 turnovers. These are Indiana's best players, their core, their foundation. When your best players are giving the ball away at that rate, the team cannot sustain itself. New York's defense deserves enormous credit for this. They made Indiana uncomfortable. They made passing lanes disappear. They pressured the ball. They contested every decision Indiana tried to make. Leonie Febick with 3 steals was the visible tip of an iceberg. Beneath the surface, the Liberty's defensive scheme was perfectly calibrated to make Indiana's offense second-guess itself. Let's talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention: offensive rebounding. New York had 13 offensive rebounds tonight. Indiana had 9. 13 second chances. 13 extra possessions. 13 moments where the Liberty missed a shot, someone crashed the glass, and New York got to keep attacking instead of giving Indiana the ball. 14 second chance points for New York off those boards. That's an enormous contribution from offensive glass crashing. Jonquil Jones was significant here with her 2 offensive rebounds leading to second chance points. Hans Sue grabbed 2 offensive boards in her minutes. Breanna Stewart cleaned up 4 offensive rebounds herself. When you're trailing in the fourth quarter, and you need stops, and the opponent keeps getting second chances, the psychological weight of that is crushing. Every Indiana defensive stop that doesn't result in possession for Indiana is like a punch that you don't see coming. And the Liberty landed 13 of those punches tonight. Indiana gave up 40 points in the paint. New York scored 40 of their 83 points by getting to the inside, getting physical, scoring at the rim. And 38 of Indiana's 75 came in the paint, so both teams were committed to interior play. But New York did it more efficiently, drew more fouls doing it, and turned that interior dominance into a decisive advantage. Final stats, one more time, for those of you who want to walk away with the complete picture. Final score, New York Liberty 83, Indiana Fever 75. Scoring by quarter. First quarter Indiana 25, New York 21. Second quarter Indiana 15, New York 16. Third quarter both teams 17. Fourth quarter, Indiana 18, New York 29. New York's Breanna Stewart, 30 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists for steals. 18 free throw attempts. Plus 17 on the night. The undeniable best player on the floor. Indiana's Kelsey Mitchell, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. 4 turnovers. Their leading scorer, who never stopped fighting. Caitlin Clark, 10 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 1 block. 5 fouls. 29 minutes. The engine of everything Indiana tried to do. Monique Billings, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 85.7% shooting. A revelation. Aaliyah Boston, 13 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks for turnovers, a technical foul. New York free throws, 33 of 40. Indiana free throws, 9 of 15. Indiana turnovers, 15. New York turnovers, 11. New York offensive rebounds, 13. Indiana offensive rebounds, 9. The final margin, 8 points. The final statement, the Liberty are a championship caliber team, and the Fever are still becoming one.